Hi there, welcome to this episode of Out of Bounds. I'm John Locke with Mary Evers, and we figured last week we talked about the end of a dynasty. This week we're going to talk about a sport basically cheating and basically ending itself.
Yeah.
Of course, we were talking about the MLB sign stealing scandal that, of course, emanated down in Houston with then Astros bench coach Alex Cora banging on a trash can and getting some type of scheme going there. And then 2018, when he became the manager of the Red Sox, he had reportedly some type of scandal with sign stealing in the replay room there. So This has been an utter and complete disaster for Major League Baseball over the past 7 days.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Okay, so I'm like on the fence on whether or not this is actually good for the MLB because, quite honestly, when was the last time we sat and talked about baseball in its entirety in January?
Never.
Yeah, exactly. The football playoffs are going on. It's the middle of the NBA and the NHL season, and everyone's talking about baseball, and that's never happened before. So maybe that's good for the MLB. But on the other hand, it's all bad stuff. So maybe it's not good for the MLB.
All right, so let's go through some of the key things here. Of course, the punishment came down from Major League Baseball for the Houston Astros, and that's been the first clear punishment that we know of. A.J. Hinch and Jeff Luhnow, the GM of the Houston Astros, were suspended for 1 year from baseball, meaning they'd be suspended through the 2020 World Series. They were then fired by Astros owners. So that's one part. Former assistant GM Brandon Taubman suspended for a year as well. The Astros lose first and second round picks, not just for this year, but for 2 years now, and they are going to be fined $5 million. And we're still waiting for the Red Sox punishment, which I think is going to be the interesting part here, which goes into why did Alex Cora part ways / probably got fired by the Red Sox.
Right. Well, I mean, in that initial report that the MLB put out about the Astros, it was made pretty clear that Alex Cora was kind of the mastermind behind all of the sign stealing stuff. Now, A.J. Hinch kind of just threw him under the bus in his own statement, which is fine if he was the one that created it, but I think that speaks a lot to A.J. Hinch as a manager, that he just kind of let his bench coach apparently do whatever he wanted without any consequence. So maybe it's actually for the best that the Astros are losing A.J. Hinch as manager. He may have won the World Series, but apparently it might have been just because of Alex Cora's sign stealing that they won that. And I think that, according to the Red Sox, they're only parting ways with Alex Cora because of the Astro stuff, because they haven't actually got a full report about what the MLB found with their cheating scandal with the 2018 World Series. We do know that it's probably going to be less than what they did was less than the Astros because they just simply used the replay room and didn't bang on things, and there may have been buzzers that the Astros used. We're not exactly sure yet. So because there were MLB officials in the replay room during the playoffs, apparently the Red Sox weren't able to actually seal the signs during the playoffs. So in that case, the Red Sox may have done less than the Astros, but the problem with the Red Sox is that they're now repeat offenders.
That's why I don't get why Alex Cora left the team. The punishment isn't going to change just because you got rid of Alex Cora. You're getting judged based off of being a two-time cheater. Kind of feels weird to say the Red Sox are two-time cheaters. But also, everything that MLB is looking at is based on the 2018 season. If it comes out that the Red Sox, were using the replay room to go ahead and help steal signs and benefit in winning games, then that's one thing. But what would the punishment be? If it turns out that Alex Cora knew about it, but baseball would have said, well, this is kind of a Red Sox matter, so we're going to fine the Red Sox $5 million. You lose draft picks, you lose international signing money, which is a big thing, especially in a top 6 market like Boston. But if it comes out that Alex Cora wouldn't earn any extra suspension, I think the Red Sox would have held on to him because it would have been a case kind of like Bountygate in the NFL. We saw Sean Payton suspended for a year. He came back for one night to watch Drew Brees get a passing record. But if it's a 1 year suspension, the Red Sox can get through that. He had the backing of the clubhouse, which I think is really important and really telling here, because there are some instances that show that some of the big players on the Red Sox benefited, ironically enough, in 2018, and their stats took a nosedive in 2019. I did some stat finding here with Mookie Betts. Some of the numbers that stick out for me as far as batting average goes: 2018, a 346 batting average; 2019, 295. Same RBI total. 2018, he had 32 home runs. In 2019, he had 29. Andrew Benintendi, same story there. He benefited more in 2018 than 2019. Xander Bogaerts, during a BBWAA, I think that's the abbreviation, dinner, said that he wanted a coach that was like Alex Cora, because the players could connect with him. He had a grasp on this locker room that if it comes out that Alex Cora didn't have as big of a part as he did in Houston, that could be really interesting for the Red Sox.
I think the weird thing I find about all of this is what happened in 2019. Like, did they stop doing it in 2019? Did the MLB know it was happening already during the season and just kind of never said anything? There have been reports that the commissioner knew about the Astros and the Red Sox, as well as some other teams, using sign stealing methods throughout the last couple of years. And he had planned to do the investigations internally, and they didn't decide to broadcast this to everyone until The Athletic kind of reported it. So I'm beginning to think that this investigation has been going on since the end of 2018, because if the sign stealing was such a big part of what happened with the Red Sox in 2018, what happened were they not doing it in 2019, and that's why they kind of took a nosedive and then didn't even end up making the playoffs? Or did something else happen? Was it really just not that effective that this year, well, they still kind of sucked? It didn't actually matter if they were stealing signs or not. So I don't know, and I think I'm kind of torn about Alex Cora being fired, because I liked Alex Cora as a manager for the same reasons you said. He really did have a hold on the clubhouse. We saw all this division with that team when John Farrell in his last season, and Alex Cora kind of brought them together in a way that they hadn't been in a long time, especially because a lot of the young team members are not necessarily native English speakers. A lot of them are Spanish speakers, and Alex Cora was able to effectively communicate to all of his players without using a translator or help from other players. So I feel like in that aspect, I'm going to miss Alex Cora as a manager. However, if he's only gotten his success because he's been cheating this whole time, that's not the person you want leading your team. And I mean, he might be officially the sports world's best cheater, but I mean,
something to strive for. You get a trophy, right?
I don't know.
So just to go along that line of thinking, it's very interesting, because the Astros, who are proven cheaters now in 2017, they made it back to the World Series in 2019, and they made it to the ALCS in 2018. So what would that team look like if they didn't have this sign stealing, trash can banging thing going on here? And my answer to that is you'd probably have a team that continuously appears in the ALCS, is a regular in the World Series. But right now, the Boston Red Sox, if you think about it, 2017, they made it to the ALDS before losing in the playoffs to, I think it was the Houston Astros. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
yes, I don't remember. I think so.
I'm sure we'll fix it somehow. If it was another team, we'll fix it. Post-editing, that's how it goes.
It was the Yankees. No.
2018, obviously, they won the World Series with a franchise record, 108 regular season wins.
Yeah.
This year, they fall on their face. If that doesn't scream that this is a team that cheated, used replays and all that, because don't forget 2017 when they got bounced in the first round, they used the Apple iWatch there. That shows me that the Red Sox benefited from this. And really, the 2018 Red Sox, for lack of a better term, you could almost say they fraudulently won the World Series championship.
Yeah, but I feel like you could say that, but you also have to remember that the Red Sox have historically had randomly good teams and then were bad the year before and bad the year after. Like, this is kind of a thing for them. And I've always thought that speaks more to kind of the way that the team is structured management-wise, because, I mean, I think they've now gone through four coaches in the last decade, if I remember correctly, because it would be Francona, Valentine,
Farrell,
and then Cora. So it might just be because of the influx of random coaches and the fact that they will fire a GM right after winning the World Series. But now, who knows? Maybe they fired
Hein Bloom.
No, I'm talking about Dave Dombrowski. Maybe they
Oh.
fired Dave Dombrowski because they knew that he had something to do with this. Maybe he wanted Alex Cora as their manager because how successful he was with the Astros cheating. You really can't say.
All right, so let's ask the question here that I started to talk about, and it's really been going around the Boston sports talk radio there. Is the 2018 World Series championship tainted?
I don't want to say yet, because if the MLB report comes out and they didn't actually use any of these methods of cheating in the postseason, I would say no, because even if it got them to that point, they did a lot of good things in the postseason, obviously, because they won a World Series. So maybe they would not have won 108 games in the regular season, but it looks like they were able to, if they didn't end up using these sign stealing techniques in the playoffs, I would say it's a valid championship. If it turns out that they did, that's when I would get a little wary of it.
So I said it a couple minutes ago, I'm going to say it again. I think that this is a tainted championship. And you mentioned the postseason success, that's one thing, but you also had the 108 wins during the regular season when the replay room is more accessible. So how many of those wins that the Red Sox had out of those 108 were responsible because you had player X going into the replay
Don't
room?
say player X, because that's just what they are calling Xander Bogaerts, and it makes it look like
Okay,
throwing him
fine.
under
Player
the bus.
Y, player B. They had Brock Holt go in there. They had a player go into the replay room, look at the shift, see what they're showing for signs and signals and all that. And if it comes out that, 15 or 20 of these wins that the Red Sox had out of those 108 were because of the replay room, that's pretty tough to stomach.
But then was it a fluke that they were just that good in the postseason then? Because this is recently a team that is kind of choked in the postseason. So I feel like there was actually a lot of, like I said, if there was no cheating in the postseason, there was a lot of positive things, and they played really well in the postseason. So I really think that even if they hadn't stole signs in the regular season, they probably still would have won about probably 90 to 100 games.
Let's figure out who the ALCS MVP was that year.
Oh, God.
Jackie Bradley Jr. There's such thing as dumb luck, and Jackie Bradley Jr. walked up and hit some big hits. They were important hits, yes, but again, I don't think you get to the ALCS if it wasn't for what happened in the regular season.
I mean, that's possible, but you also have to remember that, I mean, the Yankees were on their tail that season the whole year. So maybe they wouldn't have won the AL East that year. Maybe the Yankees won the AL East. The Red Sox still went into Yankee Stadium in the postseason and beat them. And like I said, it seems like they didn't cheat. So I feel like that would have happened whether they were the 1 or 2 spot, because the rest of the AL East didn't do so great in 2018. So they still probably would have made the playoffs in the wild card spot at least.
All right, so let's move on here because we have a couple other questions to go through here. Obviously, this is going to have a big effect on baseball, not just this season, but really the next 5 to 10 years. What effect is this going to have on the world of sports? Because we talked about this before the show. The NHL, you have an iPad. NFL, you have an iPad. NBA, the game is literally happening right in front of you, but I think they also have an iPad as well, but you also have a 45-foot Jumbotron above you that you can go ahead and kind of scout things out. So there's 3 sports that technological advances have been made that helps in game planning. MLB is still the straggler. So what impact is this going to have?
Well, so I think it's weird because the MLB does use iPads as well to improve their personal stuff. Like I know JD Martinez, like in particular, is one of those people that will go back and review how he did in one at bat as opposed to another. So they do use technology. I think the problem is like whether or not this replay stuff should be used, because I think with the other sports the replay is delayed to some extent.
Right,
so
about
maybe
7 to 10 seconds.
Right. So I think that like if the MLB, they might not have the manpower to actually like watch the replay room in all of these stadiums. during the regular season, because it's 162 games and there are 32 teams. 30 teams, or there's going to be 32 teams. Now there's just 30. But that's a lot of games and a lot of manpower, so you can't babysit these teams. So I think what has to happen is they either have to eliminate the replay room in the studio and maybe do it from like a remote location. Like maybe you should just be sending the signal to Nesson Studios and sending it back on a delay. I don't know, but I think they might just have to eliminate the replay over like completely.
So you're saying kind of do like a command central, kind of like the NBA has the caucus,
Right.
NHL has Toronto, NFL has wherever.
Well, the MLB does have that because of like official review. They go back to New York. So maybe just kind of stick to that. I think the issue what the MLB is having is the replay room that is showing replays on the jumbotrons in the park is what they've been using. At least that's my understanding of it. I didn't read the whole report, so I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to assume that's what they're talking about because I don't know what other replay room would be in this in-house, because usually they'll just send the camera feed to New York to do the official reviews. So they already have that. So if it's something like really bad that you really need the replay for, you still have that. I think it's the elimination of the replays in the park itself.
So I think you almost have to embrace what's going on in baseball here. So let's take at Fenway Park for a second here. We talk about all these camera angles, Nesson. They can go ahead and zoom in on the signs that the catcher is giving. Mm-hmm. Now, fun fact, I'm not exactly sure where in the backstop this is, but there are TVs all around the backstop that fans can watch the game.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, I'm like 90% sure, but I think there's a TV right next to the manager. So
Probably,
the manager
yeah.
can go ahead and watch
Well,
the signs that are
thing
being
is,
given.
but
again, you have the 7-second delay.
Right, because the feed that are in those TVs is the Nesson broadcast feed, so it is delayed. It's like the same ones that you would find in the concourse. So there are TVs everywhere, and they do play the Nesson feed, but because of the delay, it's not as much of an issue, I think, with that it is with them actually going into the in-house video room and looking at the replays.
So for baseball to stop this, in my opinion, they have to do an overhaul technology-wise. You're going to need a clock, and honestly, I think you're at the point now where you start giving those wireless earpieces or headsets to your pitcher, to the batter, to the manager, maybe the first base, third base coach, and the pitching coach. At this point, there are cameras everywhere. You don't know who's watching you and with what.
Right.
And if you want to have, a coach or whatever up near the media, that's one thing. Fine. Close off a little bit of the press box and have someone call down and have a play clock. Because at this point, baseball is going to be a running joke for the next 3 to 5 years because of what's going on with Houston, with Boston, and I mean the Mets are the Mets. They fired Carlos Beltran after one day.
Right.
So
yeah.
This is going to be a running joke in baseball now. If a pitcher goes out and he gets rocked for giving up 8 or 9 runs, he can go out there and say, well, I mean, I saw a little something on Josh Reddick's shirt, or Jose Altuve was really holding on to his chest or something. MLB has to fix this, and the way to fix it is to get with the freaking times.
Yeah.
1960 is over. We're in 2020, and we're only going forward here. And to do that, get a game clock or a pitch clock. You get the wireless communication there. People our age, we don't have the 4.5 hours to go watch some 65-year-old guy twiddle his nose and rub his chin and touch his cheek and try and figure out, is it going to be a curveball or is it going to be a slider? Is it a 3-2 count? Are they going to put the shift on? Advance the game. You want to get youth into baseball. You want to try and get younger viewers into baseball. Do that. Games are going to get cut to 2.5, 3 hours because you have that wireless communication. You don't have to wonder if the Cracker Jack guy in section 110 has an iPhone looking at your first base coach.
Right.
If baseball can move things along here technology-wise, they're going to save their game for the next 30 to 40 years.
Right, and I think especially if they find out that if these reports are true and there are at least 7 other teams that are doing the same thing that the Red Sox and the Astros have been doing, that's 7 teams, and it's 7 at minimum probably. There's no doubt in my mind that every team in this league has found out a different way to steal signs, because sign stealing has been something that's been happening for a very long time. usually it's the guy on second base that's watching the catcher and kind of relays that information. But with technology, they've made it easier. And I think you're right. I think this might be the thing that finally pulls the MLB into the 21st century because, well, it's 2020 and their viewership is only declining. I mean, the Jeopardy GOAT special had more viewers than the World Series did this year. That's insane. That's not something that would ever happen before. So I think that this might be a wake-up call, but it also might mean, as well as if you want to praise the MLB commissioner for how hard they've come down on the Astros and how hard they're probably going to come down on the Red Sox, that's fine, but it might be time to get the MLB's front office younger as well, and maybe the ownership too, because I mean, you see it nowadays, like it's too much now.
If you think about this, a tenth of MLB managers have been let go because of this scandal. I mean, obviously that's 3, but still, to phrase it that way,
right.
You have 3 franchises that have had tremendous success, except for the Mets, throughout the last 30 or 40 years.
But they're still in a very big market.
Right.
Just because the Yankees dominate that market for the most part, they're still very scrutinized by the media, and it's all 3 of these teams that have huge fan bases and followings, and these are the teams that are actually selling out your parks. The Mariners, no one cares if they're going to be sign stealing because, 1, no one goes to the games, and 2, their teams have not been successful in a very long time. So I think that's like, obviously, these people are trying to get the game to be more entertaining, and these are your markets that you're going to have to get more entertaining, because they stand to lose a lot more than markets that don't have a very big fan base. But now we're, 25 days out from pitchers and catchers reporting, and now 3 of the biggest markets in the sport don't have managers.
All right, so let's go onward and never upward. We're on to 2020 here, the regular season, and there have been some names that have been thrown out there. Ron Renicky as a potential replacement for Alex Cora. Jason Varitek is another name, and I mean, we've gone everywhere from current managers to former players, Wally, Tessie. So who's going to be the Red Sox next manager for opening day 2020?
So I think what they should do is maybe make Jason Varitek the interim manager for the moment. Send him down to Florida and get pitchers and catchers going, because he's been around those guys for a while now. So he probably has enough information and manager experience to be able to control that for now. And then they need to bring in someone that's going to work well with the way that Heimblum's planning on running this team. And obviously, he's a very analytical guy, and he wants to cut some salaries to get under the luxury tax, which is fine, but now you're going to have less. You're probably going to lose some draft picks, and your farm system is already terrible, so that might be even more difficult than we thought it would be. So I think that Jason Varitek they've been saying is kind of the highest odds to become the new manager. And he might be a good new manager, but I think that maybe someone who, like Alex Cora, is bilingual and has a connection with the guys in the locker room is kind of your way of going for a new manager.
So if you're trying to go with someone that can connect with the clubhouse, a bilingual candidate, one name that has been tossed around is ESPN analyst Eduardo Perez. And that would seem like an interesting pick. I think he was in the running for a couple of other jobs, I think, last year. But right now, the Red Sox are in damage control mode. And the role of manager has been reduced a lot. Now your baseball operations, besides Heimblum up in the press box there, the way your baseball team runs now is based off of your coaches, your pitching coach, your batting coach. So as far as the manager goes, you kind of just need a figurehead. And I think the Red Sox have to, right now, if you're playing for 2020, get someone in there that can manage players' attitudes, kind of get them all focused on the right thing, because players are shook after this whole scandal.
And they have to be. This is, they grew very attached to Alex Cora, and now he's just kind of gone. And not only do they have to do damage control, but there's also 2 other teams that now need managers. So now you're also competing with 2 other big market teams with all these possible manager candidates.
So I'm hearing names in the sports world of Buck Showalter, John Gibbons for the Astros and the Mets jobs. I think one sneaky name that the Red Sox and the Red Sox fans need to watch out for, we talked about this earlier, is Dusty Baker. Right. Dusty Baker has proven to be that guy that can be a bridge manager. Right now, you just need someone to get you through the 2020 season. And I think that he could be someone that can do that. He can plan for, a player like a Mookie Betts that is going to be a free agent coming up during next offseason. He can plan for Chris Sale, give him his 3 months off so he doesn't need Tommy John surgery, and give him May through August off. He can plan for Eduardo Rodriguez. He's seen everything. And I think right now the Red Sox need to get a guy like this, a battle-tested guy like a Dusty Baker. And I think that's probably where the Red Sox are going to look first.
We do have one call-in manager suggestion too. Former host Brian Berard would like to see Bobby Valentine back. And I thought he was joking at first, but he keeps saying it, so I'm a little afraid that he really thinks that Bobby Valentine will be a good coach, but he won't be.
Have you noticed how he thinks Bobby Valentine's going to be the next manager, and his name isn't on this desk at all?
Wow, fighting words.
I think Dusty Baker, you think?
I don't know. Veritek, maybe, possibly. It depends on what his relationship with the current team is. We'll see.
All right, so for 2018, the phrase was damage done, and oh boy, they were right.
Yeah.
So that's all for this episode of Out of Bounds. Remember, you can watch us on our YouTube page, BTV Access Corporation. Also follow us on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. For Mary Evers, I'm John Luck. We'll see you later.